Hi guys, it's Grandpa. We're going to read some more out of our Poppy book again today. Let's talk a little bit about what we learned in chapter 12 though. In chapter 12, when Poppy gets chased into this log by the fox, she knew for a fact that that fox wanted to eat her because a fox is a meat-eating creature. It eats other animals. It is a meat eater. When she met the porcupine, she thought the porcupine was a meat eater as well. Any animal that eats meat, we refer to scientifically as a carnivore. Carna means meat. And the fox was a carnivore. He eats meat. And Mr. Ocax is a carnivore. He eats meat. But then there's other animals that don't eat meat. They don't like the idea of eating meat. They eat only plants. And those animals we refer to as herbivores. And a cow is a good example of a herbivore. It's not the least bit interested in eating any kind of meat. It only eats plants. A horse is a herbivore. And then there's other animals, kind of like a raccoon and bears and people, and we like to eat both. We eat meat and we eat plants both. People are that way. Bears are that way. They'll eat meat, but they'll also eat berries. And a raccoon is that way. It'll eat bugs, but it likes to also eat berries. And an animal that eats both meat and plants is called an omnivore, and people are omnivores. In our story, we find out that Mr. Ureth likes salt. He says he loves salt and he'll do anything for salt. And actually, most animals like salt. If given the chance, they'll lick salt or they like salt. You can go to a store and buy a big block of salt, a big chunk of salt, and you can put that on the ground in your backyard or in your field, and animals will come along and eat it and lick it, like a deer loves salt, and other animals do as well. But the problem with that is if you leave it on the ground, then it spoils. Whenever it rains, then the salt kind of gets washed away. And sometimes people don't want every animal to eat it. If it's on the ground, everything can eat it, but they put it up on a pole or a stick up off the ground, then only certain animals can eat it, like a deer. And in our story, that's what Ureth is talking about. He said at this new farm, there's a big chunk of salt, but it's up on top of a pole, and he can't get it. Only the deer can eat that one. And he is telling Poppy, I would love to have that salt. And unfortunately, I can't get to that salt, but he loves that salt. And remember, we said that Mr. Ureth has already told Poppy, everybody's afraid of me. Nobody messes with me, or I put quills in them. So he's kind of the king of the forest. And he's said even Ureth, or even Mr. Ocax, the owl, does not mess with him. And we're about to find that out in our chapter today, chapter 13, 1-3. And this one is called Early Morning. So Poppy is waking up now inside the log with Mr. Ureth. Within the log, but not too far from its entrance, Poppy found herself a nice soft place to sleep. There, curled up into a tight ball with her tail tip parked right below her nose, she felt safe enough to sleep. When she awoke after a long sound slumber, it was dark and quiet. She got up slowly, stretched her aching muscles, then looked about for some sign of Ureth. But the old porcupine was nowhere to be seen. Was he gone for good? Not likely, Poppy knew, but he might be gone for hours. She also knew one other thing. She was hungry. Cautiously, she made her way to the log's opening. It was night, and she could see neither sky nor stars. A silver sheen of moonlight made lace of the canopy of trees, above even while transforming the ground into a carpet of velvet gray. She sniffed the air. Mingled with the sharp smell of pine and fir, She breathed in delicious hints of good things to eat for her. There were nuts, berries, seeds, flowers, tender roots, all good things for a mouse to eat. There were sounds, too, the creak and groan of trees, the sudden shrill cries of animals, the occasional fuzz-buzz of passing bugs. Poppy could only feel astonishment. This was not Dimwood the forbidding. Forbidding means the scary. This was Dimwood the beautiful. It was a luxuriant world teeming with life, a universe that held more than she had ever dreamed of, a paradise that filled her with an almost aching desire to go out and dance through it and to see more. And here's a picture of that. Poppy's looking out into the world going, wow, that's a pretty cool place. Trembling with excitement, Poppy was about to take a step away from the log when she just happened to look up. On the gray, lifeless tree with a hole in its side, just an acorn toss from where she was, perched a sleeping owl. The moment she saw the owl, Poppy darted back into the safety of the log, and there she stayed, her heart thudding. Had the owl seen her? She didn't think so. Could it be, in fact, be Mr. Ocax? If it was, how could he have tracked her? Perhaps it was another owl. She had to know. In any case, her elation means all of her good feelings, now were gone. The forest was not to be for her. She sighed at the fright that she now felt. Poppy tried to calm herself. First, she thought about her discovery that Mr. Ocax had been lying to them about porcupines. At least, she didn't have to be frightened about porcupines anymore. In spite of herself, she actually giggled when she thought about Eureth. He was such a likable, unlikable creature. Then she thought of what else Eureth had told her, that Mr. Ocax was actually afraid of porcupines. The notion that the owl was afraid of anything gave Poppy considerable pleasure. Perhaps he was afraid of other things as well. So Poppy thought again about her suspicion that maybe there was something at New House that alarmed the owl. Oh, if only she knew what that was. If only she could find out. Feeling more hopeful, Poppy returned to the log's threshold to wait for Mr. Eureth. She wanted to take another look at that owl, but she was afraid to do that. So instead she just sat, content for the moment to just gaze out at the beautiful forest. The owl Poppy had just seen was indeed Mr. Ocax. He was perched upon the entrance to his home. He was flexing his sharp talons and staring gloomily into the forest. Now and then he swiveled his head. He clacked his beak. Hungry, he wished that something, anything, would reveal itself by just moving. Once, just out of the corner of his eye, he thought something had moved down by the entrance to the old log that lay not far away from his snag tree. But it was gone so fast he could not be sure. Was it the porcupine? Oh man, he hoped not. He hated Eureth. Just the thought of Eureth made Mr. Ocax drop down inside of his snag. No, it was better to sit in the darkness and listen than to have to deal with that creature. If something came by, he would just have to hear it. So when are you leaving for New House? Eureth asked Poppy. The old porcupine had made his way back to the hollow tree before sunup. Bits of bark were stuck in his lips, chin, and whiskers. Soon, said Poppy. Good, Eureth said. You're a sweet kid, but I like my privacy. Eureka, Poppy said after a moment, I know you want me to go, and I do want to go too, but when I looked out just before, I think I saw an owl. On that snag just outside my door? Asked Eureka. The what? The old tree with the broken top. Poppy nodded. Yeah, there was an owl sitting up there, she said. I was told that Mr. Ocax lives in Dimwood. Could that be him? Eureka snorted. Follow me, he said. Somewhat cautiously, Poppy trailed the porcupine out of the log. Is that the snag you're talking about? Eureka said, pointing. Yes, that's it. Well then, yes, that's where Ocax lives. Poppy jumped back. He lives right there? Absolutely. Oh, don't you mind? Poppy whispered. Nah, he's a jerk. Anyway, he doesn't get near me. But he rules the whole forest. Him? Rule the forest? Maggot milk. But it's true. Poppy? Eureka snorted. There are lots of creatures who live around here. Some are mean like Ocax. Some are sweet like me. But nobody rules. But he says he does. Oh, bees burp. That's just because you're scared of someone. Just because you're scared of someone doesn't mean you have to believe him. Eureka turned toward the snag. Ocax! He bellowed. Ocax! No, Poppy cried. Please don't. But it was too late. Mr. Ocax popped up out of his snag hole. In a panic, Poppy scrambled to hide behind Eureka's tail. What do you want? Mr. Ocax demanded. I've got a mouse down here by the name of Poppy, who says you've been calling yourself ruler of Dimwood. Is that true? Well, instead of answering, Mr. Ocax shifted his head, trying to catch a glimpse of Poppy. When he saw her timidly peeking out from behind Eureka's tail, he jutted his head forward, opened his eyes wide, and he hissed. Eureka laughed. She also told me you claim porcupines eat mice, and that you protect them from me. Ocax, do you really believe that garbage? Or you just like the way it tastes in your mouth when you say it? Suddenly, Mr. Ocax's eyes narrowed. Where did you get that earring, little girl? He shrieked at Poppy. That looks like something I ate. Poppy became so frightened she began to back up. And what I eat is mine, little girl. Mine, Mr. Ocax screamed. Now you listen here, Ocax, Eureka snapped. This mouse has as much right as you do to go and do whatever she wants. I don't want you messing with her. But Mr. Ocax, completely ignoring Eureka, only cried, Poppy, you listen to me. I don't know what you're doing here, but you might as well know that the only way you're ever going to make it back home to Gray House is when I dump your dead body on your father's front porch. And with that, he clacked his beak and then dropped down inside of his tree. Alarmed and furious, Poppy ran forward and began beating her paws on Eureka's nose. You lummox, she cried. You lump! You rattling pincushion! The porcupine only grinned. Why did you have to tell him about me? Poppy shouted. Didn't you hear what he just said? He said he's going to kill me. Oh, he's nothing but feathers. He doesn't bother me. Yeah, he doesn't bother you, but you've got quills, Poppy said. Jealousy doesn't become you, girl. Your wreath, Poppy implored. I have to get to new house. It's a matter of keeping my family alive. Well, you're pretty small to be a hero. Poppy looked down at her toes. That's not the only reason that I'm going. Oh? It's also because of Ragweed. Who? Ragweed. He was my friend, Poppy sniffed. You see, he wanted to ask me to marry him on top of Bannock Hill. He said it was the most romantic spot around. And I did want to marry him, so I said I'd go, but only after asking permission from Mr. Ocax. That's our rule. But Ragweed said, where's the romance if you have to ask for permission? So, we went without asking. When Ragweed and I got to the top, he did ask me to marry him, but before I could answer, Mr. Ocax killed him. Then later, the owl said it was because Ragweed and I had went to the hill without permission that my family could not move to new house. When they heard that, a lot of them, most of them, blamed me. Poppy pushed the tears back. So you see, I'm going to new house to prove that our being on the hill had nothing to do with Mr. Ocax's refusal. And if I don't prove it, my family can't go to new house, and we'll be ruined. I'll be ruined. So, I have to go. Only now, you went and told Mr. Ocax that I'm here. And he's going to follow me. And he's going to keep me from finding out the truth. You've got to come with me, Ureth. Ureth shook his head. Sorry, kid. This is your business, not mine. Anyway, I need to get some sleep. Yawning, Ureth turned and began to move toward the log. Ureth, Poppy cried out. If you get me to new house, I'll get that salt for you. Ureth stopped dead in his tracks and spun around. A dreamy look filled his eyes. The salt lick? From new house? The whole thing? You would, really? Poppy placed a paw over her heart. I swear. Ureth grinned. Now you're talking, girl. Let's go. Move it. And without a moment's hesitation, he began to lumber through the woods. Poppy took one last look at the snag in the dawn light, and then she tore off after the porcupine. And here's a picture of Mr. Ocax flying away from his snag, his old dead tree. The two of them had just barely gone when Mr. Ocax popped out of his hole. Having heard the entire conversation, he wasn't sure which he felt more. Fury, meaning he was mad, or fear. But he did know that he had to stop Poppy, so he launched himself into the air. And that's the end of chapter 13. I hope you're enjoying the book. I am. Starting to get better and better, and it's going to get even better. Talk to you later. Bye.